We've just had the biggest leak of all time for the Switch 2, and Nintendo messed up! Nintendo had an opportunity to get ahead of real factory leaks with images and specs of the system, like what we found here, before these leaks would even matter, and Nintendo missed the boat on this one. Or did they? You know, they could have been planning on this happening this whole time, so we'd be all hyped up before the reveal and be paying very close attention when it finally does come. We know that the Switch 2 reveal is happening very soon, and potentially this week. Nintendo themselves are even flying out many developers to visit Nintendo of America for an event, and that's been confirmed by numerous sources. We also got 4 new NSO games that were shadow dropped Tuesday night. And we might even have an announcement tonight about the reveal happening as soon as tomorrow. If you remember what Nintendo did for the Switch 1, they announced it the night before. So Nintendo is definitely wrapping up for a big event soon that could even happen tomorrow. It is a possibility, but we'll just have to wait and see. These Switch 2 image and spec leaks do appear to be legit. They come from Chinese forums. We have photos and CAD file images that would be used in the factory to create the components. And we even have very detailed specs that are laced with model numbers. So why should we believe this? Well, besides the fact that the factory worker that leaked this provided credentials, Video Game Chronicle and other journalists have been reposting it and saying that their sources are telling them it's legit. Now, Andy Robinson, the editor-in-chief at VGC, said this about it. Alleged images of the Nintendo Switch successor console have appeared online, showing a design that's not too dissimilar from the previous console. The images, which appeared on Reddit but were originally sourced from a Chinese social media site, show a device with a larger 8-inch screen, magnetic Joy-Cons, and USB-C ports on both the top and bottom. While the images are unverified, one source who has not seen the final Switch 2 console but has been briefed on Nintendo's plans told VGC that the Reddit images match what the company has told partners to expect from its design. Now, the images I'll show are from prototype CAD files that the manufacturing factory would use to make the product with. And there are even real shell photos shown as well that also show the internal casing. Keep in mind that though these should match what the Switch 2 will look like, there could be small changes made on the final product if Nintendo changed their mind on some of this after they gave the manufacturer these prototypes. The first factory prototype CAD image is of the left Joy-Con. You'll notice that there isn't a sliding rail here like the original Switch Joy-Con has, but it has a large protruding end that looks like it would fit right into the console like previously suggested. There aren't any new buttons here, but there is on the right Joy-Con. This right Joy-Con is similar, but there's an extra button right here that the original Switch doesn't have. Next, we look at the back of the console base to compare the Switch 2 and original Switch. The only thing that doesn't match up with what developers have said is that we're now using a U kickstand design instead of this kickstand design that matches the OLED version. But keep in mind that these are factory prototypes, and the final Switch 2 can have alterations from what we're seeing here. What matters with this picture here is the size. Notice that the base unit of the Switch 2 is so much larger than the original Switch, and this would be much larger than what the OLED version has, even though the kickstand looks like it's from the OLED model. You can obviously tell this isn't the OLED model because it's even larger and it shows the press fit indent here that a Joy-Con would fit into. Here we see the screens showing how the 8-inch display of the Switch 2 is massively larger than the 6.2-inch display of the Switch. And it might also look like the Switch 2 is even thinner than the original Switch. Though these CAD images might not look the best, you've got to keep in mind that they're just CAD files and not actual photos. We do have actual photos of the shell of the Switch 2 that we'll look at later. Next, you can see what it looks like on the bottom. We have a USB-C slot. It looks like we have 2 speaker grills here, and we can also see the lip you would pull out to open up the kickstand. At the top, we have ventilation, the power button, volume buttons, a headphone microphone jack, and there's another USB-C slot at the top. That's new. It could be used to charge the unit multiple ways, whether you want to charge it from the top or bottom, or maybe something else. I don't know. This right here could also be a new button, but who knows? And right here, we have the cartridge slot for physical games. On the Joy-Cons, we see the bigger L, R, ZL, and ZR buttons, but it looks like there's an extra button here. What is that? The back of the console shows that extra button better. Sure, it could be an extra button for gameplay, but I'm betting it's a release button to release the electromagnetic pull on the Joy-Cons so you can detach them from the base unit. We now see the shell with some internals. We have a fully custom board with slots available where other components and chips will be added later. And we can see where things will fit into place, like the cartridge slot, the battery holder, and even the magnet connectors that will connect to the magnet behind the SR and SL buttons of the Joy-Cons. We don't see any of the buttons, obviously, with these Joy-Cons just being shells. But wouldn't it look nice if the shell is dark like this and the buttons are white? If you like what you've seen so far, make sure you subscribe so you won't miss out on anything. Here's the back of the right and left Joy-Cons. And here's the side of the shell for the Joy-Cons we were looking at earlier. This is probably the connection point, where it press fits into place and charges the Joy-Cons. And there are magnets behind the SR and SL buttons. This also shows that the current Switch Joy-Cons are not able to attach to the Switch 2 base, but there are rumors that they can still be used as another controller set if you charge them through the original Switch or on a charging dock. And here's the front of the Switch 2. You know, it does look shockingly similar to the Switch, but with smoother edges. And though the Joy-Cons are still straight, they're probably easier to hold than the originals. Now, let's get to the specs, the nitty and gritty of what the Switch 2 will actually have. These specs were summarized from Nintendo Everything with the following. Rumored Switch 2 specs. We have the game console itself, left Joy-Con controller, right Joy-Con controller, the CPU, GPU model, and it looks like we have a very fast 12 gigs of RAM split between 2 gig RAM arrays. We also have 256 gigabytes of flash storage memory. Now that's way larger than the Switch 1's 32 gigabytes. We have an audio chip, an NFC reader, which is used for Amiibo, and an awesome feature we next have here is a built-in microphone. This is a new feature that the Switch 1 never had. It also looks like Nintendo's trying to get a huge performance out of this beast because they will have dual cooling fans, as opposed to the Switch 1 that only had one fan. The video signal conversion supports HDMI 2.1, which is exactly what we need for it to display at 4K when in docked mode. We've got a Gigabyte network chip, a microcontroller chip, the protective case, which is just the shell of the system, and the speakers that use 2-channel stereo. Now, these specs line up with almost everything we've heard so far for the Switch 2. One thing I want to point out is that this might not be the finalized ship-to-market design and specs, since this could be based on an earlier prototype that Nintendo may have revised since then. However, it does line up with what has been said about the Switch 2 from credible sources before. And this type of a leak from a factory worker that got the manufacturing prototype confirms that Nintendo is now working on mass-producing the Switch 2. And though Nintendo doesn't have to have the Switch 2 reveal soon, they better if they want to piggyback on this hype, because the longer we wait, the more leaks will come out of the actual finalized product and details of it instead of this prototype that we've seen. We are in an exciting time right now. Like I said in the beginning of the video, Nintendo invited many developers to come out to their Nintendo of America branch a few days ago for a big event. And since the Switch 1 had an announcement for it the night before the reveal happened, we could very well see the same thing happening with an announcement and the Switch 2 reveal very soon. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about these Switch 2 leaks and when you think we'll see Nintendo officially revealing it. As always, thanks for watching Alcantar Gaming. If you like this video, you're gonna love this one here.